Okay. Okay, so this is a time where I want to. I mean, I never really like to be serious, but in a sense, you may see this as a serious subject or you may not. It's up to you. But so we were having, it was during celebrations, it was the day that we were going to have a parade, and we had a meeting, or we met with Guru at Aspiration Ground beforehand. And then everyone was kind of going off towards Parsons Boulevard to get ready to the start of the parade, which is we'd go up Parsons and then go down, eventually down to Jamaica Avenue. But anyway, so because there was people going, I was going to probably be with the Yugoslavian disciples, or maybe because I often had different sort of things that I did as a guard as well, taking care of the parade. But I decided that I would stop by my place on the way, and then go and join the parade. So I get home, and again, I'm in a kind of a joyful, relaxed mood. I've just been with Guru. We're gonna go to the parade, and there's a thing where essentially I had an answering machine. It's back in these old days of analog stuff and everything. And I had an answering machine, and I noticed that the light was blinking on my answering machine. And at first I thought, well, no, I can check it out later. I'll go to the parade first and wherever. But no, I hit the button. And when the message started, it was my mother's sister, the youngest sister. She was one of 3 sisters. And so my mother was the oldest one, and this was her youngest sister, one of my aunts. And she was saying that she needed me to call her, that there was something serious had happened, which immediately made me concerned, because I knew that my sister had gone on for like a second honeymoon with her husband, with my brother-in-law. And so first of all, I immediately thought maybe it's my sister, something's happened with my sister. There's been like a plane crash, or I don't know where, you start to think of the worst. Anyway, I kept trying to get through to my aunt, and no one was answering the phone. But I kept trying again, because you don't give up, you keep perseverance. So I kept calling and calling, and it seemed like a lifetime. But eventually, she answered the phone, and immediately it was funny actually, because the moment I heard her voice, my spontaneous reaction was, "Is it my mom or is it my sister?" And she said, "It's your mom." So then I sort of welled up a little bit, and then I sort of calmed down myself, and then she started to tell me that my mother had been killed. And so I started thinking, of course, your mind starts racing everywhere, and you start thinking about she's been in a car accident, or like I had thought, like with my sister, that it would potentially like a plane crash or something. And then she says this word that just sort of came into me and then just disappeared right above. And she used the word murdered, which of course you never want to hear anything like that. Maybe there's been an accident, or maybe she's had a heart attack, or do whatever. My father had a heart attack. So I had to kind of process that whole thing. And then we spent maybe another 10, 15 minutes where she kind of outlined what was going on. The police there was an investigation, and they were all trying to sort the thing out, and that there wasn't a lot of information she could give me at that point, but they would, to keep in touch and then get more later. And that also my sister had been informed where they were. They were somewhere in maybe Tenerife or something, I can't even remember now. And that they were on the way back. They hadn't been told exactly what had happened, but they would be met by police or whoever at the airport, and then informed so that they knew as soon as they arrived back in England. So we finished the conversation, I put the phone down, and I thought, okay, there's a parade going on. it was kind of funny, but I thought, there's a parade going on. I wonder where Guru is. And I didn't really know, I had no way of getting there. I didn't have a car or anything at that point. So I thought, well, what should I do? So I decided to walk, I wasn't that far from Anabrahma, I decided to walk over to Anabrahma. And as I approached Anabrahma, I saw one of the Anabrahma girls who immediately recognized me. And she was in a very cheerful mood. And she said to me, she said my name and, said something quite cheerful. But then she saw my face, that I was very serious. And she said, what happened? And so I kind of give her a brief thing of what happened, that my mom was dead and this and everything. And she says, does Guru know? And I said no, because, I only just found out myself, and, Guru's off on the parade. And she said, you have to tell him. And as it happened, two disciples, a husband and wife, happened to come by in their car at that moment, and she motioned to them, and they came over, and she said, you have to take him to the thing. And it was on, at that time, they said, Guru's on Union Turnpike. The parade is on Union Turnpike. So I get in the car, they drive to Union Turnpike, and they drop me off, and I see Guru's standing by a parking meter watching the parade go by, maybe half a block away. So I start to walk over there, but then again, my mind sort of comes in, and I think, I saw that Guru was so happy and joyful with the parade, and my mind immediately said, how can you go and tell Guru this sad news? You go away and tell him later. But then as I started to turn, I'd got quite close at this point, and there was one of the guards was standing there, and he also saw me turn around, start to turn around and walk away. And he caught my attention, and he said to me, is it serious? And I said, yes. So immediately called Guru, and Guru turned and looked at me and motioned me to come over. So I told Guru the news, and Guru immediately, for me it was really, really strange that Guru sort of almost started to collapse. He lost his balance and he started to collapse, and he kind of went against a wall. And my first thought was, Guru's reacting the way I should be reacting. But I think, I was in shock. So I was kind of just, the only thing was try to get the business done. And then Guru turned to me, and he first put his hand on his third eye, then he looked at me and he said, I am shocked. I am shocked. And my reaction was, I'm shocked too, Guru. And then Guru said, I will take care of it. I will take care of it. I loved your mother very much. And then basically I kind of walked away to go back now, because to allow Guru to go back and continue to watch the parade. And so that was it. And then I think I remember the parade ended up at the Aspiration Ground. I kind of had the time to start to deal with the whole thing, to calm down a little bit. And Guru gave prasad, so I went up and took prasad. And then I went home. And the Guru's going to give a public concert in Manhattan that evening. And I didn't know what to do. Only a couple of people knew my situation. And my friend was going to give me a ride into Manhattan to go to the concert. So I went there, but then I think the word obviously had got around a little bit. And a few people that I was very close to immediately were coming up to me, quite emotional, and trying to offer some sort of solace, however. And I kept saying, by this time I'd kind of somehow started to deal with the thing. And, basically, it was funny because I was sort of assuring them that they was okay, And then I remembered that there was in the place where the auditorium was, there was an upstairs. So I went up to the upstairs and watched Guru, and then immediately Guru came. It was sort of strange because, there was a certain pattern of the way that Guru would give concerts. when he was playing and this and everything. And he started with playing like one of the keyboards, electric keyboards, and singing the Invocation, which I don't think in my memory that he'd ever started a concert by singing the Invocation. You know, he'd maybe sing it somewhere near the end. And so that was something very kind of interesting. And then the thing was all over, and we were driving home. And the person I was driving home with, we'd come off of that, what that time was Grand Central Parkway, and we would turn down 160th Street, which also goes past the street, the side street to Guru's Street. And the funny thing was, is the moment we came onto 160th Street, we suddenly realized that the car that was carrying Guru was in front of us, that we were following it. Then, of course, it got to the right turn, it made the turn. I then drove up, my friend dropped me at home, and then, when I got home, what do I see? But my answering machine with a light flickering, that I have a message on my answering machine. At first I thought maybe it was an update from my aunt. But then I hit the button, and all I could hear in the background, first of all, there was no speaking, but all I could hear was the sound of birds, like parrots and things in the background. And my immediate thought was, this is Guru's house. And then I heard Guru's voice. And the thing for me was really strange was because, you know, we had heard, Guru had made an announcement some years before, or maybe a year or so before, that Guru hated answering machines. And so he didn't like it when he called someone, called a disciple, a New York disciple, in an answer machine, he got an answer message. So I thought, Guru's got my answer machine, and he's not going to, you know, I know it's him because I've heard his voice, and he's not going to say anything. And then all of a sudden, Guru started talking. And he said to me, tomorrow you come to Aspiration Ground. Tomorrow you come to Aspiration Ground and see me. And that's sort of the first part of the story. And so the next morning, obviously, I'd had a good night's rest. I think I was a bit more calm about the whole situation. And my first thought was, I have to bring something for Guru. And I'm very, very, very good friends with the disciple that owned the flower shop in New York. And I called him and I said, look, I want to bring the flower to Guru. And he suggested the one that Guru liked, one of his favorite flowers, which is very fragrant flower. So I said, well, can I get that? He said, yes, come to the store in like 15 minutes. So I went there and I got this flower, and then I came back I arrived in Aspiration Ground. And then when I got there, of course, again, like, as I said, a few more people now knew what was going on. A couple of the guards that were actually at the gate knew kind of that I was going to be there and what happened to my mother. Not what had happened, but my mother was passed. And I said, like, you know, that Guru told me to come. And so they said, well, they let me in and said, like, you go by and wait by Guru's gate, his entrance. And so sure enough, I went there, and then after maybe, it was like, again, it seemed like a lifetime, but it was probably 5 minutes. I see Guru's car coming in. And then, I tried to get out of the way a little bit so he wouldn't block it and everything that. Then Guru gets out of the car, he acknowledges me, but I still wait until I get told to come in. And when I come in, at that time it was when the old temple was sort of like this wooden house, not the temple that we know today. And so I was motioned to come there. The door was opened. I sit at Guru's feet. They closed the door behind me. I handed the flower to Guru. Guru put it on the table next to him. And Guru started meditating. And then, And because, as I said, I was kind of like, I guess I was in shock. I was emotional. I was all in my mind. And Guru started telling me some story about the brother of someone else that had some kind of drug problem or whatever. And my first thing, my mind first said, what is Guru talking about? And then my mind seemed like completely confused, and I realized that's exactly what Guru was doing. And then he opened up my heart, and Guru opened his heart, and this sort of thing came between, his heart and my heart. And then it was like Guru was talking to me purely, And then Guru started talking about my mother, about, that she would come now to his special place in the soul's world. And he started to say these really, really beautiful things about my mother, and how much he loved her and how he was taking care of everything. And it sort of seemed to really, really assure me. And then he gave me again, as I said, it seemed like maybe 5 or 10 minutes, but I was told later on that it was like half an hour. But it just went so fast because I was in a completely different place. Guru had put me in a completely different place. It separated me from the whole grief and the whole sorrow and everything. And then Guru picked up the flower and he held it, and he then sort of brought in the fragrance to himself. And once again then he smiled, and kind of that was it. It was sort of over. So I started to get up. The door was pulled back a little bit so that now it was open. And as I stood up, and it was really strange because as I stood up, it was as though I'd been carrying this cloak of grief. And as I stood up, that cloak of grief just dropped up away from me. And I felt completely light and joyful. And as I walked away and then started to walk down the driveway, people were coming up to me like with really sad faces to offer their condolences and whatever. But I was so full of joy that they were surprised, and then it was almost like this joy was infecting them. And they also then lost their grief and their sadness. So again, it was like this unbelievable thing, an experience that Guru gave me. That it's sort of strange to say, but it was like afterwards, when I had time to think about it, it was almost like, it was sort of like the most incredible thing that I could ever experience as a disciple, that, and it was like an away situation that it was classed to the fact that my mother had been murdered. Okay, so I already told you the first sort of 2 stories about the death of my mother. So because of the circumstances of the death, it was they wouldn't release the body for about a month. Basically, we were told that they wouldn't release the body, and we would be informed when that time would come. And just like with my father, my mother wanted to be cremated. So there was plans made about when that would happen and so on. But it was really interesting during that period of time. I was still in New York, and I would go to Aspiration Ground regularly, and I was also in communication with my sister very often, maybe every couple of days, and she would inform me as to what was going on. And I thought it was really interesting that when I would talk with her, she sort of like pulled out all this kind of energy that was in me, this kind of dynamic energy or whatever. And then Guru kind of like instructed me to come to Aspiration Ground and just look in through the gate and just look at him for a minute or so. And he sort of like recharged me up. So it was sort of like after I talked with my sister, I was exhausted, and then I would go and Guru would fill me up again with energy. And then finally it was time for me to fly to the UK. And the night before, I got a call and was told to come to Guru's house. So I went to Guru's house, and when I got there, I saw that there were a few disciples there, and they were celebrating somebody's birthday. It actually was one of the girl's birthday, and she was actually in my center. So I knew who it was, and it was almost as though I'd been invited because it was our center. And but then after we had the birthday cake and group meditation and everything, and we were all leaving. As I was on the way out the door, again, one of the Anna Brahma girls said to me, "Oh, please, Guru wants you to come to him on the porch." So I go to him on the porch, and Guru came out, and then Guru put something into my hand and said, "You're going somewhere." And so I left, and as I was walking home, I looked, and Guru had given me basically the plane fare for my flight back to the UK. So that was kind of pretty amazing. Then in my conversations with my sister and the updates of kind of what was going on, they still hadn't found the person that had killed my mom. We had two detectives that were being assigned to the family, a man and a woman, and I was introduced to them. They interviewed me just for a sort of a background thing of the son of the victim, and then they said we continue to be updated. And it was like a few days went by and still nothing solid had happened. And after my meditation, one morning, because I saw how it was devastating my sister and her husband, and even my nephew and niece. So at the end of my meditation, during my meditation, I basically asked the Guru, "Please try to do something. You'd said I will take care of this." And so that afternoon, this was obviously in the morning, that afternoon we had gone to my mother's house and sort of cleared out some different things. And then when we came back to my sister's place, in the evening we got a phone call from these detectives saying, "Please stay home, we'll come." And when they arrived, they told us that they caught the guy, basically, which is then to me was really amazing. And this was I think on a Friday, or no, it was on a Saturday. And it was already arranged that my mother's cremation would be on a Monday. So it was sort of like a blessing that the whole thing had been resolved in time for us to really, observe her, her passing, the cremation. And so that was kind of a bit more settling for the family. And again, I thought, oh, well, Guru's done his job, sort of. And, he has taken care of it. And then a couple of days after that, I happened to call New York and talk to one of the disciples I knew in New York, and he said that Guru had actually been on his way, I think because there'd been some problem with Guru's sister, Lily maybe even, and so Guru had actually gone to India. And that actual morning that I had asked him to take care of things in my meditation, he actually had been in London, in the airport. So it was as though Guru was actually right there, very, very close. So that was kind of really special for me, and I felt, wow, Guru's really really has taken care of things. And finally, after a few more days, it was time for me to go back to New York. And when I got back to New York, I think I actually got back maybe on a Wednesday afternoon, and I just basically got ready and went to go to the Wednesday night meditation at PS 86, and of course I did I waited when Guru's car came rather than just go straight in and take my position, just so that I could see Guru, when he arrived. And Guru looked at me, and we walked together, and Guru said to me, "Everything is all right?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I have a million questions. And I said, "I have a million questions too, Guru." And that was sort of Guru's greeting. So as it was, after again a period of time, the trial for the guy had been set, and then I was supposed to go over. And I knew that just around the same time that I was going to be in the UK, Guru was going to be traveling to Rome, and some of the disciples would run the Rome Marathon, and Guru would get this Fred Lebow Award from the directors of the Rome Marathon. And I was there maybe 4 or 5 days before that was going to happen, maybe like on the Tuesday before the weekend. And of course we kind of thought finally this is going to be a resolution of the whole thing. But they delayed the trial. And so what did I do? I thought, oh, Guru's in Rome. I want to try and go to Rome. So I quickly made some arrangements, and I got a flight into Rome. And I was actually there. They had arranged for there to be peace relays, peace torch relays from 4 different locations into the center of Rome, to near the Colosseum and near the start of the marathon. So I actually got to participate in that. And then I had made other than a flight, I'd made no arrangements to stay, no hotel or anything. First of all, I think it was the Croatian disciples said to me, "Oh, you can come and stay at where we're staying." So the first night I stayed with them, and then of course again, we had functions at this hotel where Guru was, and the second night I got to stay with the Macedonian and Serbian disciples, and then I got to fly back to the UK. But it was kind of funny when we were at the hotel, and of course Guru didn't know I was coming, and at one point Guru wanted to go to his room, I guess. We were inside the function hall, and then Guru got up and walked out into this hallway, but you could kind of walk to the side of the auditorium, and there were doorways, and I was standing in this doorway, and Guru saw me and said, "Oh, you are here," and smiled, and he said, "Everything is okay?" And I said, "Yes." And so that was almost this resolution. I mean, it was a few more months before the trial was done, and the guy who killed my mom was convicted, but then again, that was hopefully all just done with. It was kind of strange because for me, as I said, Guru sort of taking care of all the concern and the sadness and the grief from me. But now I felt more relaxed that my sister, my family, now had some kind of resolution. So eventually, it was arranged that everything was arranged that there would be a trial, and this and that, and but it was really strange during the whole time, the investigations kind of thing. There was one of my uncles that had actually divorced from my aunt. Actually, he was the husband of my aunt. He had lived pretty close to my mom, and he actually had done a lot of things for her, like odd jobs and things and everything. And it was one of these things that he somehow had become one of the suspects. But but I knew that he really loved my mother. I mean, he had problems with my aunt, her sister, but which is why they got divorced. But I knew that he loved his mother, and so I thought somehow in conversation, whether Guru asked me about something, and this uncle of mine had been mentioned, and Guru asked to see a picture of him, and I showed Guru a picture, and Guru said, "No, he's a very nice man, very nice man." And then after I said they had the trial, and then of course there was a newspaper article about the man that killed my mother, but who I had never actually seen him, and even during the trial I could only see the back of his head. I never saw his face. So this was my first time seeing his face, and I thought when I saw him, he looked really like almost like he's possessed by some negative force or something. And when I showed Guru the article, Guru also kind of really focused on it a lot and everything. But again, Guru had said I'll take care of everything, I'll take care of everything. So I think, and then it was interesting because my sister and my brother, when I would be with them, after we'd gone through these things in my mom's house, sometimes I would be sitting there, and then they would give me things that Guru had given to my mom that they found, and they knew, they would say, "Oh, you probably want this," because they recognized that it was something from the center. So that was really nice. And then a little while, I started having experiences where every once in a while I would smell my mother's perfume when I was in New York. And when I was talking to my sister, I said this, and she said, "Oh, that happens to me all the time. I feel my mother's presence." And so we talked about things and everything, and then suddenly out of the blue, my sister said to me, "Your teacher, has he said anything about death? You know, when people die?" And I said, "Well, you know, he has at least one book about death and reincarnation. Would you like to see them?" And she said yes. So I gave her two of those books, which she read, and then she gave them back to me, and she was like really felt more relaxed and more, you know, to understand sort of the whole aspect of death and reincarnation. So that was again, you know, even my sister was sort of like starting to feel connected to Guru.